welcome to the podcast, Levy Lee Simon,
Hey,
whose name I just actually learned professionally. I've always called you Lee, as you
yeah.
know, the whole time I've known you,
Mhm.
which is 16 years.
16, can you believe that? It's gone by so fast.
It really, really has.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to welcome you to the podcast by reminding you of what attracted to you in the first place, which was okay, so 16 years ago,
Mhm.
I'm brand new. I'm
Mhm.
in this, I'm in a meeting that's full of brand new, like a lot of new people.
Right.
And you told this story, not in a wise way. You were pissed about how you'd gone out to lunch. I think it was like you'd gone out to lunch with a group of friends, and I believe they were like sober friends. And you were like, and then like the check came, and I had like gone to, I might be misremembering this, so you can remind me. But then you
I'm
said that.
surprised you're bringing that up. You got it though. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Cut you off.
So you could tell me the story, and I will tell you that I remember going, "Oh my God, that is my kind of person." You were so mad that you felt misunderstood, and I was like, "I feel misunderstood. I need to be friends with him." But remind me of the story.
Yeah, I think I was like in my first 30 days or something like that, and I went out to a dinner with a guy from the program. I won't mention his name, and his brother and their friends. And it was a very nice dinner, and we're at this restaurant, very nice restaurant. And I had to go to the bathroom, and I came back and the check had come. And I'm forgetting whether I left the money. But what happened was I was accused of bailing out on a check. And man, I don't do that. I don't, that's not how I live. And I was like so pissed, at both of them, the brother and the brother,
Uh-huh.
and it was so interesting to me that I had a place to go and share about it in a meeting because otherwise I would have held on to that and it would have built into me having to react in a way that would not have been very nice. And I shared about it in a meeting, but when it came up, I was angry, to be accused of something that I did not do, intend to do, had no thought of doing. And there they were accusing me of bailing out on, $40, whatever it was. It was a small amount of money to me. I was not going to jeopardize my reputation over something like that. Even early in sobriety, and I'm trying to like find out how to live sober. But living sober does not mean that you don't get angry. You know, I've been angry a lot more times after that, in sobriety. But I didn't pick up.
I just remember constantly feeling like a raw nerve those days and just being mad all the time. And it was so refreshing to hear somebody just say, like, hey, this thing happened. And I was so mad and I just felt really misunderstood. And I just don't know what to do with like how pissed off I am.
I remember you. You were in those days, you were like a deer in headlights, kind of like, oh my God, what am I doing here with these people? You know? And I remember, I just remember like connecting to you instantly. It was just like not even a question. There was something about you that I was like, yeah, that's my girl. That's my girl right there. We gonna make it. We gonna make it.
And we did.
And here we are,
I think there was like a little group of us in those days that were funny, like
Yeah.
creative types, writers. And I think we were all just like impressed that we were all trying to do the thing, you
And
know?
we were pulling for each other, we were there for each other, no matter like, we stand on the sidewalk and talk about, where we were at, maybe even talk about people.
One in particular.
One in particular, you know who that was.
Hmm.
and it was just a bond, that we created. So it was like even after all these years later, even when you call me, I have a bond with you that will never be broken, and so here we are.
Another funny story, which not calling anybody out, but I remember that you told me, and this is pretty early on, we were also frustrated together at like sponsorship and being told what to do. Neither of us liked that very much. And you had somebody who made you go and get business cards made. Do you remember this? And you tell
The crazy part about that guy, I love him today, right? He's just, listen, there people in AA are not all well. We're not well.
no,
You know,
no.
and it doesn't matter how much time you have, or anything like that. And this guy was like what I call a big book thumper or orthodox AA,
Oh yes, yeah.
and you may as well have the hat on and wear the big book around your chest. And this guy told me, he said, well, I want you to, call me every morning at 7:30, and I want you to get business cards and give out at least 5 to 10 business cards to newcomers every day. And I'm not doing that. And I remember one day I called him. Yeah, it's about 8:15, and he said, "You're late," and he hung up on me. And I was like, "Okay, well, we're done." You know, we're done.
Yeah.
They say, "Will you go to any length?" And I go, "Yeah, but not I'm not stupid." You know, I mean, within reason, you know.
There's so many stories of people, having these experiences early on where then later they go, and I'm so grateful now that this person made me go stand in the middle of the street and like wave down traffic. And I'm like, no, you're not. First of all, there's way more of us that were like, hell no, than there
Right.
are people that are like, I'm so glad I did that. It's not, I think it misrepresents like what we're doing. It's not supposed to be punishing you. We're
No,
supposed to be supporting each other.
and I mean, most of us have a rebellious nature anyway. I've always been rebellious. I've always been anti-authority. Don't tell me what to do type guy, and that goes back to my parents to, even when I was in New York, I grew up in New York and Harlem, and I was an athlete. Even my football coaches would not, they had to find a way to communicate with me that they couldn't yell and scream at me because I would shut down, right? And they knew that. And so they would pull me to the side and they would talk to me. They just talk to me. And that's when you got results from me. Otherwise I just shut down, man, because I wasn't trying to feel that. So when I got to AA and those people that were trying to be like drill sergeants and stuff like that, I'm not that guy. And this guy was like that. But it's kind of funny because as time went by and I would see him from time to time, and that guy, he's really a good guy. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah, he
heart.
is.
His heart is big. He just goes about it in a way that I was not for me. And to be honest with you, I felt like in the beginning, a lot of those old timers saw me there and they didn't think that I was going to make it. They didn't think I was serious, because I was rebellious and because, I had a certain attitude, but that was the New Yorker in me, that's never going to go anywhere, So they didn't know how to handle that. It was like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? He's never going to make it. But hey, so far I've proved them all wrong.
So take me all the way back. Tell me about your parents. Tell me about your upbringing. I know that is a big part of your story.
Yeah, well, like I said, I grew up in Harlem. I'm a child of the 60s, and my parents are from the South. They came north in the late 50s to, for better opportunities, black parents, from the South. My mother was a very accomplished woman. She was one of the founders of the Head Start program in this country.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, and my dad was, he was a stand-up guy, worked for the post office, never any issues. They did the best they could with what they knew. I didn't have alcohol in the home, so to speak, but the building that I grew up in was a five-story tenement, and almost every apartment was a family member. And so on Fridays they would have these like Motown parties, at somebody's house. And when they had them at our house, they would be playing, Diana Ross and the Supremes and the Temptations and James Brown and all that. And my bedroom was right next to the living room. So as a kid, I couldn't go to sleep. I just stay up and, excuse me, in my bed and listen. And I wanted to be a part of that so bad. I couldn't wait till I was old enough to be a part of that. And even then, it was like sometimes, when the party was over the next morning, before my mother cleaned up, there would still be glasses out with a little bit of liquor in it, and I'd take a sip, unbeknownst to my mom, and play like. I was an adult, and then my Aunt Shirley, who was like the Marilyn Monroe of the family, beautiful, beautiful woman, and my best aunt. Well, I had two. My father had 15 brothers and sisters, by the way. So
Whoa.
they were all, half of them were living in the building, and they were all in New York. And when my Aunt Shirley was a wild one, she drank, and she was probably an alcoholic at some point because they used to talk about her behind her back, and they didn't call her an alcoholic because they knew anything about that, right? But she drank a lot, and she came into my room, and one day she had always had this can of Valentine's ale, right? With a and it had a napkin around it. And why do you have to drink that beer? I would ask her, and she said, "You want taste?" Yeah, and I tasted. Ooh, it's nasty. She said, "Honey, you don't drink it for the taste, And
Uh-huh.
I found out what that meant, So, um, growing up, I had my family, I had a very loving family. But when I went out into the street of Harlem, that's where the test was, for me. And wanting to be a part of, not wanting to be called a punk, not wanting to be, disrespected by the community of kids and stuff like that. So I had to, fought a lot, I had to get tough. I had to, and when it came time to, put the 50 cents in for the bottle of night train or wild Irish rose, at the age of 13, 14, I was there because I needed to be, part of that, but I never thought it was a problem. And it wasn't a problem until it was a problem. Like they say, fun, then fun with problems, and then just problems, right? So I made my way through high school, I was a celebrated athlete. I went off to college, and when I got to college, my first college was in North Carolina, Johnson C. Smith University, all black college in Charlotte. And man, did they party down there. And I was like right there with everybody. First of all, I was free. I was away from my parents. I was away from home. And I was like, oh my God, I was independent. I could do what I want. I had no one on my back. And yeah, so when it came time to like drinking and celebrating and smoking reefer, I did all of that, as a freshman, no big deal. We were having fun. I transferred my second year to Cheney State College in Pennsylvania, which was also an all-black college, the oldest one in the country. And same thing. I was in near Philly, but it was the same thing. I played sports for a while, and then it's while I was there, my shirt right. While I was there, I discovered that I had a talent or not and a passion for acting. I wanted to be an actor. And so I graduated with a double degree in journalism and theater, and I came out and started pursuing a career in the theater, and it was like the 80s in New York. And oh my God, I call that period of time, the roaring 80s, because
Hmm.
it was just mad fun, right? I was taking acting. I had a little job, not little job. I had a big job, but it was a job that afforded me time to, in the beginning, to,
What was the job?
I was a caseworker for the Bureau of Child Welfare.
Oh, wow.
I would go out on, it was a big place in the Bronx and SSC the Bronx and Special Services for Children, Bureau of Child Welfare. And we go out to investigate cases of child abuse and neglect. And in the beginning, I had 2 days in the field, 2 days of court, and 1 day in the office. So my time was really free. We got one case, maybe one case a week that first year. I was only there 3 years. And the second year, it seemed like overnight there was these epidemics that happened. One was AIDS, and two was crack cocaine. And we went from getting like one case a week to getting two cases a day. And all of a sudden, that job was very stressful. Um, but at the same time, it was like I was getting a regular paycheck. I was taking acting classes at night, doing little shows here and there. But on payday, baby, everybody would wait. You're coming in on that Friday. My palms would be wet from sweat because I knew once I got that check at noon, no one was going to see me for until Monday because I get that check and then I go up to Washington Heights where my Dominicano brothers, yo, papi, what you need, man? Yo, mo, papa, hey, come on, come on, come on. You go up the steps with the guns out and everything, and you go in, and they got the weight thing for the cook. Papi, what you need? Oh, papi, back. Yo, me, papa. Yeah, but that's for you, baby, papa. And that was it. You go, you get your bottle of rum, and this is all pre going out to the clubs, right? Because you do that
Right.
during the afternoon, you get nice and tight, and then you go out to the clubs and we're all about the music, sex, drugs, and R&B and hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And it was just the way I lived, and in the beginning, it was all fun. It was fun. It was adventurous. It was like and then it became fun with problems because all of a sudden it was like I can't pay my rent. I'm short on my rent. I'm short on paying my bills. Money's tight.
Was it
Well,
interfering with your job at all? Like the way you were doing your
yes,
job?
eventually it did. Eventually, I started missing days. And actually my first attempt to get sober happened when I was there at that third year. What I I went to HR and I told them, I said, I think I have a problem, you know. And they were very nice. They were very nice about it. And they said, well, you have insurance. And they sent me to this place out in Long Island called Seafield. And it was plush. It was like they had like a baseball field, they had a soccer field, they had volleyball courts, they had a pool, you know. All the people there had high-end jobs. They cooked shrimp scampi and filet mignon for dinner. And I'm like,
I want
yeah,
to go now.
this is not that bad. It's like a mini vacation, right? And I ended up going out there 3 times. Well, I went twice to Seafield, then they had a sister program in Woodhaven, Pennsylvania, and I went there. That place was incredible. I still think about those people. I never met a group of people that were more down to earth and spiritual than the people that were there at that place. I think that's when I think it's the first time I actually heard the message of recovery, right? Even though I wasn't ready to get fully sober then, but I heard the message and I was leaving there This is 92. I was leaving there and I got out, I did 30 days. I got out and I got an acting job and I stayed clean and sober for 6 months, right? And I thought I was like really on the beam, right? So I get this acting job and it's going to take me, first it took me to Washington, D.C. We did a show at the Arena Stage in D.C. And then the show got selected for the um, Black Arts Festival in Atlanta. And we go down there and it was a big fanfare. It was like, write-ups in the newspapers and all of that, hit show comes to Atlanta. I had the lead and I was doing pretty well. We got great reviews. I was on the cover of American Theater magazine, my God. I mean, this was some big shit, right? I got approached by the casting directors at of Heat of the Night with Carol O'Connor and Howard Rollins. They said they wanted me to come in and test me for a really big part and everything. And so while I was there, this is kind of a funny and at the same time depressing, sad story. So while I was there was this woman who she was a costume design, not cos I mean makeup design person, black woman who was very, very, very attractive, right? Very hot. But she wouldn't speak to me. And I asked my castmate, I said, man, why isn't April speaking to me? And he said, come on, Lee, you know why she's not speaking to you. I said, no, I don't. Why? Because she likes you. I said, God, that's high school. That's elementary. He said, Lee, she likes you. I said, okay, let me test this out, right? So she comes in and she's doing my makeup, and I don't like to wear a lot of makeup on stage. And I said to her, I said, well, when are you taking me out to dinner? And she said, what? I said, when are you taking me out to dinner? She said, well, when are you taking me out to dinner? I said, how about Saturday night? She said, okay. you know. So we go out to dinner and we're sitting there and she's ordering, I never forget, it was rosé wine. She was ordering this rosé wine. I'm ordering, ginger ale, whatever. I'm on something non-alcoholic.
So this was like 6 months. You were
I
sober
was
about 6 months?
sober, 6 months sober.
Okay.
And she's ordering the wine and I'm looking at her drinking this wine and the more she drank, the better she looked, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, well, damn. On the third glass of wine, I said to the waitress, hey, give me what she's having. And drank my glass of rosé. We were leaving the restaurant and there was a liquor store right across the street. And I said, ah, fuck it. I already fucked up. Let me go and the Addict's national anthem, fuck it, right? Let me go and I grabbed a bottle of Bacardi rum, took her back to my place, and I'm thinking, okay, it's that time. We're gonna do our thing. And in the middle of, all of the petting and, stuff that goes on, she backed up and she says, well, how do I know that you're not gonna F me and I'll never see you again? And I'm like, what? Baby, come on. You down to your underwear. It's a little bit too late to say that, right? And she was like, and she wanted to talk about it. I didn't want to talk about it. So we're talking about it though, right? And I'm like, and the more we're talking, it seems this is gonna be one of those conversations that's never gonna end. And it may not never happen, right? So I just said, you know what? Time for you to go. And she got put on her clothes and she left. Now I'm sitting there and I have half a bottle of Bacardi rum. I'm obviously, excited, stimulated. And I'm going, and as any good alcoholic addict does, I had driven around Atlanta while I was there. I knew where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, fuck it again. And I got in the car and I went over there. And sure enough, I found exactly what I was looking for, crack cocaine, right? And was smoking that night, and I had a certain amount of money on me, and I run out, and the drug dealer that I was buying from, this Atlanta guy, who people already told me from the very beginning, this guy was dangerous. And so, and finally he came, and then I'd gotten some drugs on credit from him. And he said, okay, New York, time to go get that money, man. And I said, okay. I had put some cash money in the house where I was staying. About $3,000 I had in the house. I know I had it, but the problem was I forgot where I put it.
Oh no.
So I'm looking all over. I'm tearing the bedroom up. I'm looking all over for this money, and I cannot put my hand on it. And I came back out, and I told the guy, I said, yo, man, I got the money. I just don't know where I put it. And he was with two other guys, and he looked at me, he said, you fucking with me? And I'm like, no, 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 no. He said, New York, don't come down here like they call me New York. New York, don't come down here, thinking we stupid. And I said, nah, bro, I really I have the money. I just don't know where. Give me 24 hours. I'll find it, right? His friend said, man, shoot that motherfucker. And I'm like, ah, yo. And the guy says, look, no, 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 we're not gonna shoot him. He said, I'm gonna tell you what, New York, this is what we're gonna do. He said, we're gonna leave. You're gonna find that money. He said, but every minute that you're late, we adding $1 to that, right? Every minute. Steph, I go back, I cannot find this money for the life of me. Now my heart is pounding because, you know, I'm playing the actor. I'm not a street guy like that. I don't have guns or anything on me. I grew up around that, but I'm not that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, oh fuck. So that was on a Friday, I guess, whatever it was. We had Monday off. Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon, there was a knock at my door. I'm hiding. I'm thinking it's these people. And but I look through and I see white hands. I look through the blinds of the window and I open the door and it was people from the theater. And they came and said, Lee, we don't know what you're doing or what you have done, but you got to go. What happened? Well, some people came by the theater looking for you. And when we told them you weren't there, they shot up our theater. And I'm like, and said, we can't have you on the stage and they come in and shoot you. And we definitely have to look out for our audience. So we have a plane ticket right here for you to get on the plane and leave. And we had 2 more weeks to the show. I had, all the stuff going on with the people in the heat of the night. And next thing you know, I was on a plane back to New York. You talk about pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. I felt lower than whale shit, you know. And I got back to New York and there was some other stuff going on with my brother. And I found the money.
Where was it?
I had put it in the Bible.
Wow. And you had the book with you?
Yes. And didn't know and forgot I had put the money, tucked the money away in the Bible.
Wow.
Right? So needless to say, like any good alcoholic crackhead will do, I went on a run. I went on a run and then I got into some serious trouble with some dealers on the avenue. actually it was behind something that my brother had done. They had threatened my parents, and I took an action that landed me in jail, and I was looking at some serious time. And when you go in like that, it's my first serious crime. They have you interviewed by a psychiatrist, and there was this black woman, and she said, "What is wrong with this picture? See, you have a degree, you have a budding career, and you're here. What is wrong with this picture?" And I couldn't answer her because I didn't know. And she said, "I'll tell you what's wrong with this picture. You're an alcoholic and you're an addict. And then the only way you're going to get out of this is to get clean and sober. That's what you need to do." And I heard her. And she said, "If you get out of this, the first thing you do," and she gave me an address to go to a treatment center. So I got out. And I got out on bail, and that was a whole dramatic situation too, because there was going to be a race riot in at Rikers Island and all of that, and I got kind of caught in the middle of it. Not that I did anything, but because I was neutral, I mean, I had no issue with the Puerto Ricans or anything like that, but they love me, and because I get along, but anyway, just before that was going to happen, the CEO opened the gate, electronic gate, and said, "Levy Simon, you made bail." And I was able to leave before anything happened. And my mother, my manager at the time, and an ex-girlfriend who just called my mom to say hello to my mother. And my mother said, "Well, our boy is in jail and we need, another 3,000, whatever it was, to help bail him out." And she said, "I got it." And between the three of them, I got bailed out. And I went directly to Project Return Treatment Center in the Bronx. And I stayed there for 6 months. It was a hardcore, low bottom treatment center where most of the people there were trying to stay out of prison or jail and already had done time. And
And you're like, where's my shrimp scampi?
exactly. We weren't getting shrimp scampi there. That's
Where's my fettuccine Alfredo?
no. I was trying to keep from washing the daggone pots for 800, 300 people. Well, 800, I say 800 because it felt that way, and I was there for 6 months, and then, most of those people they had not, were working on getting their GEDs and stuff like that. And I got a degree, I got a career. And I asked them, would they allow me to go out on auditions? And they did. And lo and behold, while I was there, I'd gone out to audition for a Spike Lee movie. I went to audition for a couple of other movies. And here's the thing, Stefanie, I would go out for these auditions. I didn't make any announcement about it. I'd come back, and there would be like 50 people in the auditorium going, "How did it go? How did it go?" And I'm going, "How'd y'all even know I had the audition?" And finally, I auditioned for a Broadway play called The Kentucky Cycle. And I went in twice with a callback. And one day, shortly after that callback, I was upstairs on the third floor and through the loudspeaker said, "Levy Simon, report to Michael Collins' office immediately." And I ran down, to find out what he wanted. He said, "Man, get in here." I walked in. He said, "Man, call that Richard Rosenthal." That's my manager. "Call that Richard Rosenthal, motherfucker. He keep calling here, man, bothering me and shit." So I went to reach for the phone, and he grabbed the phone out of my hand. He said, "I got to tell you, you got the part, man. You got the fucking part, man." And I was like, "What? You going to Broadway?" I'm like, "Get the fuck." I called my manager. He said, "Yeah, they offered you the part." And I said, "Oh shit." Now, mind you, I got a case I still got that open case from what happened. And this prosecuting attorney had the hots. She wanted me to do time. And so I talked to my attorney and he said, look, we'll work something out where, you can go and you come back. I'll schedule all your recurring court cases for Monday. So you could fly out on a Sunday night, do your court case on Monday, fly back to LA because they were going to rehearse in LA. Well, I um I talked to him and told him about, everything, right? And we go to court that day. And we're standing before the judge, and the prosecutor stands up and says, Your Honor, I'm dropping the case. And I'm like, and I looked at him like, did you talk to her? He said, I didn't say a word to her, Lee. And I'm like, higher power, right? Next thing you know, I'm on a plane, Hollywood, right? I'm done. And I stayed sober. Sober. I say sober, but really I stayed I was abstinent for close to 10 years. And during that 10-year period, I went back to school, I got my master's degree in playwriting and but I wasn't doing a program. I went to a few meetings here and there. It didn't go to any meetings when I was in Iowa. I was there for 5 years and I didn't go to any meetings. I tried to go when I first got there, and them farmers coming off, out of the cow pasture and shit. I'm not, I can't do this. Right. Plus, I stood out like a sore thumb, being a black man in Iowa going to AA. It was like, oh, there's that guy. And I just couldn't do it. I met a couple of people that were sober that became really good friends who are friends of mine to this day. And then right before leaving, 2001, my mother had a heart attack in church, and she lingered in a coma for a month before she passed. And at the same time, I graduated with my master's degree in playwriting. This all happened within over a week, right? I graduated with my master's degree, and the woman that I was living with, we had a horrible, horrible breakup. It was just really horrible. And I'm only mentioning that is because the level of emotional swings that I was going through and not really having any support system, not really owning the fact that I was an alcoholic. The only thing that a good alcoholic is going to do is drink, and I drank, right? And I drank, and I stayed out for 7.5 years, and that was when I came to LA. Um, it was a horrible situation because I optioned a movie script. And I came out here with all these expectations that didn't happen. And then, I just found myself, back in the fast lane, running in LA. And I don't even know LA, but I was running with, around some bad people and I wasn't doing some bad things other than I was getting high, but I was hanging out with, I like that. I like that kind of life, I mean, and it's exciting and whatever, there's another addiction it really. And then yeah, and I came back to New York, I was homeless for a spell. I'm sleeping on park bench in Central Park, and with a master's degree. So from Park Avenue to the park bench, it fits me very, very well, right? I was literally on the park bench. I mean, it wasn't that long. It was like 4.5 months or so. But I always say one day without a key is too much for anybody. I don't know how people are out there for years. I just can't. I can't even. But I got by the grace of God, I was able to get out of that situation, but I wasn't that ready to get sober. I came back out here because I had a project that I was working on
So
through my,
things were actually still, I mean, you're homeless for a spell, but you're still like writing and
yeah, because you know what? So during those almost 10 years that I would didn't drink, life was moving on, and I accomplished a lot. I got with one of the top literary agents in the country, you know, and they were the ones that brokered deals with me for my scripts that went to Hollywood and all of that. I was signed with her, and we had optioned a movie script to Fox Searchlight. Um, but and it just goes to show you that alcoholism, drug addiction, does not give a damn about any of that. In fact, it's designed to take it away. Even though in my mind I'm thinking, I can't be that bad. Look what I'm doing. But I wasn't. Anytime I say it can't be that, what would happen if I wasn't using, at all? And but I didn't think like that. And so when I when I came out to LA, it was baptism by fire, you know. And when that film thing fell through, and meaning it didn't happen, and that's a whole nother story. But and it had nothing to do with me directly, but it just didn't happen. But how I felt about it, it was like going and then having this crash, bam. And the only thing I knew to do, to with the feelings that I was feeling was to stuff it, a drink, Coke, crack, meth.
do you remember, uh, I mean, because that would have been your last major relapse, right? Like, do you remember if it was dramatic, if it was like if you'd been thinking about it for a few days, if you were like, fuck it, I'm gonna drink or do coke
Well,
or
okay,
if you
so,
just
so
like
so the progression went something like this, and we'll try to keep it short. Progression went something like this. I get out to LA. I remember I had this horrible breakup. I'm heartbroken by this breakup that I had. I'm staying with a friend of mine who's a celebrity actor guy. And his solution to my problem was, here, drink this. Here, sniff this. So now I'm sniffing and I'm drinking, and we're going out. We're on Hollywood Boulevard, Sunset Boulevard, trying to get all the, booty we can get and all of that stuff that we do, right? And it just got worse and worse. It kept falling down. I come back to New York and I end up like, homeless. And then through a series of events, I get back out to LA because some of those projects that I had worked on were now developing into something. I come back out. They wanted me to come back out because they've been working on a television, developing a TV series. Anyway, I get back out here, and I was just in no condition to do anything. So now, not only am I like out here and I'm fucked up, I really can't like function. I can't like produce like I would normally produce, right? And so, on the very last run, it was and in the middle of that, I caught another case. It had to do with the ex-wife and back child support, and yeah. So now I got this case hanging over my head, and I'm looking at again doing time. And I had to see my pretrial officer in LA on this Friday, but it's a Sunday before. So I got a whole week. And my thinking is like, whoa, you know what? I could beat the drug test. Just give me 3 days. I could beat it. I figured this out because I'm so smart. And it was Sunday night, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna go to the bar and have a drink. I'll just have one and come back home. Now, come on. I never had one. right, it's like, again, the disease that lies to me in my own voice, and I believe it. So I go out to have this one, I end up at this bar, then I end up at some hotel, motel, Holiday Inn out here in LA,
Yeah.
and with people that I don't know, doing nasty shit. And we're doing coke, we're doing meth, we're drinking every kind of drink you want to imagine, from top shelf to bottom shelf to 211, St. Ives, all of that. And it's Sunday, and next thing I know, it's Thursday, and I don't know where those other days went. And I never forget it as long as I live, as long as I have breath. I stood there in the middle of that room with these people that I don't know. They're all passed out, mind you, in various stages of dress or distress or whatever. And I heard a voice say, "See, Lee, you're an alcoholic." It was just that simple. And in that moment, I couldn't deny it. I couldn't rationalize it. I couldn't lie my way out of it. It was the truth. And I knew it to the deepest part of my soul.
Wow.
And I said, "Oh shit." And it said it again, twice. And I made a phone call. Um, my friend Lillian, she came and got me. And I called my pretrial officer, Yvette Patricio. And I said, "Yvette, it's Lee." She, "Hey, Lee, what's up?" I said, I have to confess that I've been using." She said, "I know. You think I don't know?" Because you passed the test, Lee, I've been doing this a long time. I know you were using." I said, "Well, you want me to go to those meetings and have a court card signed or something signed?" She said, "No, it's not going to keep you sober. If you're going to get sober for yourself." He said, "I don't care about those." She said, "But if you continue, I will violate you." And I said, "Okay." That was on Thursday. Friday, the 13th of '09, I walked into Moore Park. I said,
February.
no, it's March 13th of
Oh,
'09.
March 13th. Okay.
13th of '09. I walked right there by the piano, and I raised my hand. I said, "My name is Lee. I'm an alcoholic." And that was a 9 o'clock meeting. And someone came over and said, "Hey, they have meetings here all the time. And so you might want to try the 10:30 meeting." And I said, "Okay." And I went to that 10:30 meeting, and that's where the magic happened. That's where I met Scott and Laura and Lucia and a whole bunch of other people, and eventually met you. You came in
Two
shortly.
months later,
Yeah, it's like short.
because my day was May 22nd is my sobriety date. So it was only a couple days later that I came.
I remember when you came in and
So you were like an old timer by then.
yeah, yeah.
You're like, I got 60 days, so I got a lot
Yeah,
to share
man,
with you.
you know what I'm saying? I had 60 days. You couldn't tell me nothing, but I was so proud to have those days, and one thing that so much, I mean, it's so much, but one thing I did not know how much energy that I had put into getting high, staying high, not being high, recovering. I was so I that those first 6 months, I was so tired. But I was recovering from being tired, from all that work, and which I did not even realize because it had become normal, and man, at first I couldn't sleep, then I slept like crazy, and then and I would come in and I would listen to, you know, everybody's stories. Eventually I got a sponsor because I felt like, I mean, I've been around long enough to know that everyone said that the program was in a book. I wanted to know the book, and I got a sponsor that was a real kind of book thumper, and I was with Craig for maybe 4 years, maybe five, and and I got a really good kind of like education about the big book and the importance of the big book. But he was not a life sponsor. He if I talk to that guy about anything dealing with life issues, he's like he would just get all discombobulated. I don't
Right.
it's one page. I said, dude, can we just give me your experience, strength, and hope about what I'm talking about? You've been sober, talk to me. He couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. So I had to get another sponsor who was my Walter, who's my sponsor to this day. Because that guy, I was talking about this earlier today, actually. We just had lunch, and this guy is like, he's one of the happiest guys I ever met, and I'm like, well, I want what you got, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you seem to be like really loving your life and loving like being sober and all of that. So he is my sponsor. I've never seen him. It's almost unnatural. I've never seen a guy angry. I've never seen him like, flip out or anything like that. He's just so even all the time, and I got character defects. I'm still working on those. You know?
Do you feel like, because on this show, lots of different stories. It's definitely not everybody has done it through the program. Lots of people have their own ways. And I don't like to think like, oh, anybody that's not doing it the way I'm doing it is just dry. But for you, what is the main difference between when you had the 10 years where you weren't working a program and the 10 years working it? Like, is it I think it's different things for different people. Like for me, it's the sense of community. For me, it's the sense of not being alone. And I used to think so many of my thought patterns were just crazy. Like, but that's all I knew was to be oversensitive and have an ego and not want to be told what to do. So, um, I think through hearing other people's stories and realizing, oh, I'm not that different. A lot, it's that me too. That's what I think keeps me sober. What about for you?
Well, one, I love the doctor's opinion in AA. I whether I believe in the disease concept or not, it gives me something to go. I could put my finger on that, and it's like, I didn't know that until, I was able to like actually uh pull it in, you know. And it's like, okay, so I'm it's alcoholic, and I'm allergic to alcohol. I'm allergic to drugs. One is too many, a thousand never enough, whatever. I cannot have any of that stuff because it's going to trigger this disease that I have in me that wants more and more and more and more, regardless of the consequences, right? So that's one. The other is, meetings, and being around other alcoholics and addicts. I recognize, from my own life experience that I do have a built-in forgetter. That if I do not attend meetings, I'll forget how bad it was. My disease will tell me, oh, it wasn't that bad.
That's how I feel,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
I went through a period where I really wasn't attending meetings for a long time. I was just dropping in once in a while to, tell myself I was still doing it. It went on for a couple of years there in the middle. And I told myself, my kids are so young and they need me there. There's like sports stuff going on. And then my sponsor had moved. And I was like, it's fine. I don't need to ask somebody else because then they're just going to tell me what to do. And I kind of know at this point, I got it. And I swear to you, it's not that I drank again because I didn't, but those same feelings of just being irritable and discontent, the other word I'm looking for.
Restless, restless.
Restless, irritable, and discontent all the time. And it was that thing where I was like, was it that bad? Like I couldn't really remember how bad it was. I couldn't feel in a visceral sense why I ever decided that I needed to go to meetings all the time and do all of this work. But it was getting unhappy enough to go, well, what's different? Well, the difference is I'm not really working this program anymore. So I went back. I started going to meetings again. I asked someone to sponsor me, and it was the hearing the stories again and going like, oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. I totally relate to that person. I completely understand those feelings. It was like, oh yeah, this is what I am.
yeah.
And thank God I didn't like really convince myself that I should be okay drinking.
And if I stop, then this disease, this other thing, powerful thing takes over. The mental thing takes over and tells me all kinds of lies, which I begin to believe. Why not? It's in my own voice. But I'm reminded when I hear other people's story, and they used to say identify with the feelings, not the story. But it's so funny because I can hear anybody's story, and I get it. I get it. I mean, some stories are closer to mine. That's fine. Some are not. That's fine too. But what I hear the message, and I hear how people felt, and the fact that they couldn't stop. They reached that point where they couldn't stop against all odds. They couldn't stop. I'm a passionate artist. I love what I do. I've been gifted this gift to be able to do what I do. But I got into a point where it didn't matter. I drank anyway. My daughter, who never, thank God, has seen me really fucked up, but I would not show up. I mean, I one Christmas I was gonna go, to St. Louis because her mother had taken her back to St. Louis with her, and I was gonna go there for Christmas holiday, and I was all packed and ready to go. And, all I had to do was get in a cab and go to JFK, and some bright idea said, why don't you take a hit before you go? Well, I never made it. I never made it to St. Louis, and my little baby girl did not see her daddy because I wanted to take a hit. That's how powerful that thing is. And so, of course, sitting here now, I can talk about that and I can share about that. Hopefully, someone will hear that and go, oh, wow, that's me too. Or, oh, wow, I don't ever want to get that bad. Or, oh, wow, something. But we share our experience, strength, and hope that other people may hear the message, and that's another reason that I attend meetings. I don't attend them like I used to, because in the beginning I was doing 3 and 4 meetings a day.
I remember.
Remember that? And now it's maybe 3 or 4 meetings a week, but that's where I'm at right now. I'll never stop, that's for sure. Because I know that this alcoholic, needs that, it's very, very call it my medicine. It's medicinal, and yeah, I mean, I put, they say, anything you put before AA, you're gonna lose. I believe that. It's like you were saying earlier about, your life and your kids and your career and all that stuff. And I would wonder like, how in the hell am I going to like manage my sobriety and my career and all the things that I have to do. And it's so weird that as long as I'm doing my program and I'm putting this first, it's amazing how time opens up for everything else. I don't even understand how that's even possible, but it does. Magically, it just does, And if I have to move things around, I'm not saying that, okay, well, if I have a big meeting, around my work or an audition or whatever the case may be, that I'll go to a meeting first. That's not what I'm saying. You got to take care of yourself, right?
Right.
Then maybe I may have to make that meeting up at another time, or maybe have to reschedule my meetings so I could do this, but I won't compromise my meetings. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I have to be conscious of that all the time. I don't compromise my sobriety these days. I do what I got to do for me. And part of pursuing my passion and my writing, my acting, and all that stuff, that's part of being healthy. That's part of, like, maintaining my health all the way around. you know uh
So
yeah.
tell me about everything that you're doing right now. You're still writing. You just wrote a book.
I did. I just wrote, hey, I got it right here. I just
Show it to
wrote
me. Show it to us. Oh, I like the
Odyssey,
picture.
Odyssey Towards the Light. It's a memoir, first part. It's in two parts. Part two should be coming out in January. But it's a memoir about my life, about my very colorful life as a African American man from Harlem who became an artist and also a drug addict and alcoholic, and my path, to sobriety, and all the things that you know come with that. You know.
Do you think that there's extra challenges being a black man in recovery in Los Angeles?
Yes. Good question. And I remember that first stint out here in LA. Um, I had come to how I knew about Moore Park was, I remember I was living in Van Nuys and wasn't driving. I think I walked that day. It was a hot day. I was sweaty, and I walked from Van Nuys all the way to Moore Park because I had no idea, like, the blocks or whatever, because I'm not from here. And I get to this meeting, and I sat down, and I heard someone say, "Oh, he's a long way from home." Whew. Wow. Well, that did not go over well with me. And I was like, fuck this meeting. And I didn't come back until I came back that March 13th. Because I knew it was there. And I was living, by this time I'm living like a few blocks. I live a few blocks away from Moore Park. And yeah, so there's been, when I first got to Moore Park back in '09, and I walk into this majority white meeting, um, I really didn't care. I just wanted to get sober. If you guys have the answer, please share it with me. I'm desperate. I need to get sober. And there were some personalities in that meeting that I recognized because, you know, we Black people have a sixth sense about those things. And I stayed away from those people. But thank God it wasn't a majority. Thank God it was like just a handful. And I recognized them, and I stayed away from them, and you know, but the flip side of that was that I was embraced by the people, these white folk, um, literally showed me so much care, so much love, so much compassion. And I'll never, ever, ever forget that, or those people, who they were. Like, I will never forget the people that shunned me. There were a few people that I still see around. I don't have anything to say. They want to say something to me now, but I'm petty like that. Fuck you. But
Yeah.
you know, and so yeah, I mean, I think, I go to meetings across the hill, not regularly, when I go over to Crenshaw or out, out in South Central or whatever, it's a different vibe. It's a totally different vibe. Or I may go to an NA meeting. There's a Monday Night Madness meeting out over in Las Vegas that I started going to recently. Oh my God, this shit is crazy. So different from, the meetings that we go to. Because the energy is just different. The cultures are different and people express themselves differently. I mean, people express themselves in those meetings in a way that I heard someone say at Moorpark one day, came to me, she said, Lee, we we share in a general way here. I'm like, fuck your general way. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I express myself. This is a life and death disease. I express myself how I need to express myself about whatever. Now, you ask me, you know, broaching that subject matter, the race thing, it's like it's never been more prevalent than it is now with the whole situation going on outside in the world with Trump and and all that. I've lost some friends, in AA, who were are, and it says in our traditions and our bylaws that we don't discuss political stuff. It says AA doesn't. It doesn't say I doesn't. I doesn't. It doesn't say I doesn't. AA, it says AA doesn't. Because if I have issues that might cause me to drink and I need to talk about it, then I got to talk about it. And if people's ears are too sensitive or they want to take it personal, then that's on you, you know. Um, I mean, there've only been maybe 3 times in 16 years where situations got hot. And when I say hot, meaning they could have turned into something. And the first one was the Trayvon Martin verdict when that was handed down. I was so upset. I was so I was fit to be tied, and I didn't know what to do with my anger other than going to a meeting and share about it. And this was over in Hollywood, and some guy, said, "We can't talk about that in here." And I'm like, "Man, you need to shut up because you about to feel me." And this guy wanted to test that. And it took 4 people to pull me out of that room. I'm not proud of that.
I kind of am.
But, you know, you can't tell, I cannot sit in a meeting and tell you not to share about something that may cause you to drink or use.
100%. Yeah.
I may not understand it, I may not agree with it, I may not but you keep your mouth shut, you know? And this guy was very lucky that day that those guys it took 4 guys, and they were strong enough to do it because I wanted him and I wanted to wait for him afterward, but they took me away, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on that note,
And
where
that,
can we find you? Where can we get your book?
oh my gosh.
Is it available on Amazon?
It is. It's on Amazon.com. I'm all over the place. I'm on Facebook, Levy Lee Simon, you know, Facebook,
Instagram. You're on Instagram. You need some more followers. So go follow Levy Lee
Jazz
over on
Lion,
Instagram, Jazz Lion.
Jazz Lion on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. If you put my name in
I'll
it,
put all your stuff in the
yeah, because
description of this episode.
there's not many black guys running around LA with name Levy Lee. So
I told you you sound like a Jew.
oh, Mashugana, Mashugana.
Lee, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been
So
lovely. I feel like we just had a nice long catch-up session.
yes.
I know your story, but wow, there was a lot of stuff in there I'd never heard before.
Hmm.
And I just, you're so amazing for sharing so personally. It's really supposed to be general, Lee. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, this is how we help people
Hmm.
by being completely honest. So thank you so much for doing this. I thank everybody for listening, and I hope you come back next week. Goodbye.
I'm sorry.
Feeling like life is good, yeah. Life is good.